All right. Hello and welcome to another Alovéa Pros podcast. And I get to be hanging out with Dr. Brent tonight. Sir, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite.
Well, this is one of those calls. We do this with a lot of different pros, and a lot of times somebody's a coach or a trainer or a healthcare professional, whatever. Very few, let me put it this way, none have your background. I love this. You have 8 kids. Two of them are sets of identical twins. You're a PhD. You're working in the world of cancer research for over 20 years. But you do more than that. You're a triathlete, an ultra runner, which for those that don't know, ultra runners, you run like 100 miles at a time on foot. And then you bike across America, Ironman. How are you here? How are you even on this call? Like, this sounds exhausting, but amazing at the same time. How did you get into all this?
Well, I appreciate that. That's very kind of you to speak glowingly about this. I often say I'm as average as they come, 5'10", brown hair, blue eyes, size 10 shoe, 32-inch waist. I think that I was fortunate enough to be raised in a family that loved sports. My dad was a lacrosse coach at Yale University.
Oh,
And
wow.
And so he and I, and my older brother and older sister, played a lot of sports growing up. And the one particular sport that I played that really taught me a lot was wrestling. And
Hmm.
I started late, so I really got annihilated. My first year, I was a sophomore in high school. My record was 1 win, 14 losses, and I basically fell on the guy. And then I was about 500 my second year, my junior year, and then my team won a state championship. I took fourth my senior year, and it was one of the highlights. And then I got into lacrosse in college. They didn't have it in my hometown, but I learned a lot through athletics that kind of taught me, especially wrestling, that taught me that
Hmm.
I could achieve a lot more than one would think. And so, by learning that lesson, I think I started to apply it to life, and
Hmm.
what else can I conquer and go after? So, yeah, you mentioned some important things about me. I'm a freedom loving patriot, a Christian man. I got a wife of 23 years and 8 children,
Wow.
two sets of
Oh, my
identical.
goodness.
And yeah, it's just I think after college, I stopped playing sports. And actually, what happened was you mentioned also I biked cross country. I
Yeah.
rode my bicycle, mountain bike, across America with my older brother and
Wow.
my
What a
best
journey.
4,522 miles from the West Coast Pacific Ocean, dipped our bikes in the Pacific, and then rode across America through 10 states and dipped our bikes in the Atlantic in Yorktown, Virginia. And
Wow.
I got done with that, and I went on a run with my sister. It was 6 miles long, longest that I ever run in my life. And she was a marathon runner, and she said, "Well, you're going to school at Pitt next year. Why don't you run the Pitt Marathon with me next year?" And I was feeling pretty good after that bike trip. We
Sure.
rode
Why not?
2 weeks into the trip. We rode 100 miles a day for the rest of the trip. Plus, the longest day was 150 miles into Blacksburg, Virginia. But anyhow, I started training and ran my first marathon that spring, and I think I just ran my 111th last Friday. So
Wow. It's I know a guy named Pete Ripmaster we've worked with, and he won the Iditarod on foot up, which is a wild race, right? Because it's the 1,000-mile race in Alaska. And so I've met a few ultra runners like you, and it really is a fascinating. But you said something earlier about, the 1 in 14 year,
yeah,
and there's something fascinated about when how you learn through those losses or challenges, and then
yeah.
you have this mindset, because to be an ultra runner, it's not just about being good health. There's a mindset to this. How has this pulled into your career? Because being researching cancer has got to be a lot of challenges, a lot of times even failures around trying to go down a path and finding something.
Yes.
What how is the ultra marathon and that world translated into your professional career?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much an ultra runner in more recent time. I tore my ACL when I was 38 years old. I'm turning
Ooh.
50 this year, and I thought, before that I'd gotten in good shape, gotten out of shape, got good shape, gotten out of shape. And I'd run a couple Ironmans by that point, half dozen marathons, something like that. And
Wow.
I thought, that's it for me. I had a reconstructed surgery. A buddy of mine talked me in to start working out with this men's group. We'd meet at like 4:30 in the morning and start working out. It took him a while to get me there, but once I went, I started to get back in shape. And a guy invited
Mhm.
me to do a 6-man race, 200 miles, and where you tag team one person and the
Oh
next and
yeah,
the
yeah.
next, and then basically you stay awake. We ended up being, I was 40 years old. We were all over 40, and we ended up winning the race. I
Wow.
averaged the longest I'd run. The fastest mile I'd run in training was above an 8-minute mile, and I averaged 7:30s for over 30 miles, in segments of like 4 to 6 miles. And I thought,
Yeah,
wow, I guess I'm back in the game. And so, but what I realized in my sort of aged gray hair was the benefit of maintaining fitness. And so, a couple of years, it took me a couple of years to figure it out. But since then, I've about 7 years now. I've run a marathon every month, and so that's how I've stacked so many marathons. But yeah, I mean, you fail a lot more in life, I think, than you win. And I stack my failures as a mark of success, because the more
that's
failures I
awesome.
have, the more likely I am, or close to that victory along the way. And those small wins come from time to time, and and when you do, you celebrate them. Like I said, I won a state championship in high school in wrestling. Our football team, I was also a linebacker, 150 pounds soaking wet. I wrestled 145. So I mean, we were a soccer town, and our football team took second in the state, the best our team to this day, the best program that's ever had there. But
Wow.
just learned a lot, like I said, through athletics, and then in graduate school. So I wasn't a great student when I was young. I think I've sort of figured out recently that one of my sons is pretty high maintenance,
Mm.
likely to be. By the way, we homeschool our kids. I don't know if I told you that, but
Oh wow.
one
Jeez.
of my sons, my seventh child, my second son. I have six
Wow.
girls, and he's
Oh,
a complete wild man. And he's like, if you go down the list of the criteria that they would diagnose a kid with ADHD, he's all of them. Okay, and
mm,
I realize is that he struggles with a lot of the same stuff that I did when I was young, but they
mm.
never like gave any diagnosis to it, whatever. But hard time focusing. I hated to read. I was a real picky eater. Um, Fortunately through maturity, whatever, I figured a lot of that stuff out in life and how to like wield it and harness it and make it into my superpower. He's
That's
working on
awesome.
it now. He's a pretty remarkable kid. But anyhow, I think in my younger years, I had a lot of difficulties, and once I sort of, well, actually, it ties into my running. My sister talked me into that first marathon. All through
Hmm.
graduate school, I was always strong in mathematics when I was younger, but I it wasn't great in other classes. I hated to read, and so but I always scored well in math. So I ended up, you know, being a math major in college, undergrad, and biology minor. And then I got into University of Pittsburgh. I was studying for a PhD in biostatistics, and it's really really challenging. And
Mm.
valedictorians from all over the place. I was one of the few Americans in my class, mostly from all over the
Wow.
world. And these were really really smart people that I'm learning material for the first time. They've learned it in high school, and so it was I really had to work hard and apply myself. But I would have homework assignments that I'm struggling with, whatever, and I go out for a run, and I could see the solution, and so
Oh,
I'd go
that's
home and work it
cool.
out. And so I learned like there's something about when I could harness that, and exercise was a very healthy outlet for me. And then my wife was a runner too, and so we did that together as well. So
I
all
love
those
how, I
things.
love how, yeah, no, I love how, sport can kind of tie into so many phases. A lot of times we sponsor a lot of NCAA athletes, and you have this student athlete mentality, but how it then phases for the rest of your life. So you're seeing that in your whole professional
Exactly.
career. But tell us
Yeah.
how so here you are, you've got a ton of things going on in life. You're doing things that the 1% of the world ever do. And you've got this incredible family. Well, you are also sponsored by this company, Alovéa. So how did that happen? How were you introduced to Alovéa?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to take care of your vessel, your body. And so I'm very healthy. I'm very careful about what I put into my body and take supplements and so forth. And I'm really interested in, a healthy diet and exercise, as I mentioned. And so my wife is as well. And so, I was a friend of mine invited me to give a talk at one of the conferences, and Sam Castor was there, Steve Burns was there,
Hmm.
and a number of other folks. Renee Hurte was one of the
Oh yeah.
speakers. Mark Dinolo, he was a local dentist, taught me a ton about the influence of that related to what we're doing. And anyway, I gave some of my thoughts at the conference. I usually speak once or twice a year at different conferences, usually on technical terms. So this was kind of a fun way to, talk about some of the things that I do that I employ that are helpful. And I got to know the guy who founded the company, and then the fella Steve Burns who actually manufactures it, and really impressed with their whole operation. And as a result, I was already trying some of their supplements and some of their products. I really like the immune. I have some family members that are struggling with various health diseases. I could talk at length about that. That's my field of expertise. But I think one of the strongest things you can do is harness the immune system in order to
Mm.
fight off. If you're taking therapy or some of the treatments are very harsh on the body, and so if you can harness your immune system to kind of defend itself and fight off, the area of expertise in oncology that I study is called immune oncology, which is harnessing the immune system to fight the cancer. And so
Mm.
I became intrigued by this whole story of Ace Mannon. I read all the papers. I talked to Sam Castor at length. And, ultimately, I got talking to them at that conference and convinced me to, just be a part of the team, if you will. And, I'm a big consumer of their products. And, love to tell people about it and share them with them, and do what I can to help others live healthy.
Well, and what you're doing behind the scenes in the world professionally is incredible, right? It's making a difference, but to be able to be part of a community, because at the end of the day, Alivea is a social business. It's meaning for every single product of that same immune technology, that Ace Mannon technology,
Yeah.
called Alivea AE. Every single time a product sold, it creates a matching serving to children in need. And the company just surpassed
Yeah.
65 million servings to children. So,
Wow.
being a man of faith, being a man of, this company is a faith-based organization.
Yeah.
It's served over 65 million servings to children. But you got to
Right.
spend time with the founder of this company. Sam and his wife, Linda, are pretty remarkable people. They've adopted
Yeah.
their 5 children from around the world.
Right.
And their calling and their commitment is to nourish children around the world. That's what their calling has been. So that's why because that's the way the company works, is giving a huge amount of their profit because it's top line revenue. For every sale, they're guaranteeing this donation given to children through the organization called Man Relief. So when you met the owner, because look, at the end of the day, you could have just been a great consumer, right? You're doing what
Yeah.
you're doing to your body. You could have lived a healthy life, but you said, I'm going to be part of the team. I'm willing to spend time on a podcast and create that image and likeness. And so other people can learn about why you like this company. So what was it that kind of said, no, you know what? I'm not going to just be a consumer. I'm willing to be part of the team. And what does it mean to you knowing that they're nourishing children the way they're doing with you having so many kids?
Yeah, I think it's great. Sam's a solid man and he's a faithful man. And I think the vision of the company embodies its leader. So that's awesome. I know a few things pretty well, and not I have a slight understanding of a lot of things, but a couple of topics I know really well, and one of them is the Bible, the Scripture. I've been thoroughly reading it for a long time, and right away talking to Sam, I was so impressed. He was just sharing his Joseph story and how it relates to his development of this program, how he leads really with his family, his discussions with his kids and his wife, in order to carry the vision of what they're doing. I mean, it's pretty remarkable, frankly. And I think everybody has the desire to give. It's better to give than receive, and like Christmas time, my favorite time is watching the other kids open their gifts, and it's a opportunity to share some of the gifting that we have. And it's awesome that the company embodies that vision. I think it personifies what each individual in their own heart wants to do. So fantastic. And I mean, you want to be sure that you have something that's pure, that's effective, that does what it says it's going to do. And so, I've personally benefited from a lot of the products that are there. I have a daughter, one of my 8 children. My youngest has a rare chromosomal abnormality called
Oh,
Cru-de-Chat
wow.
syndrome. It's that's French for cry of the cat. It's like affects her larynx. It's a 5p minus deletion in her chromosome. So like,
Mm.
a lot of people know of trisomy disorders. We just had the Special Olympics here in Western Maryland at WISP. Many folks with Down syndrome, that's a trisomy disorder of the 21st chromosome. Her deletion is not an extra chromosome; it's a deletion on the P wing of the 5th chromosome. And anyhow, she has challenges with digestion, and so like
Mm.
we put her on the core product, and it really helps to kind of flush things out, and that's a issue that a lot of folks have. So we noticed that at the conference, for instance, there were several people who benefited from that and would share their testimonies about the products and so forth. So and I like to do ultra runs. So I use the Revive when I'm on runs, and
Oh,
I
wow.
actually, the immune is fantastic. It's that's like the one that I'm most passionate about, because I hear of people with rare cancers seeing benefit. Enhancing that immune system is so key. I can go on and on and on about it, but
Yeah.
really good stuff.
I love
Yeah.
it. I mean, your enthusiasm, your passion around it, you've seen it impact within your own family, and
Yes.
you've connected to the people behind the company. And I love all that. But I think, I love speaking with people of your background, because there's so few in the world that are willing to do things like Ironman and triathlons and all the marathons you've done. And there's such a mindset around it. So I'm gonna one last question to wrap this up, because and this has really nothing to do with Alovéa, but just with a person of your wisdom, your faith, your family, and
Mm.
what you've accomplished. Somebody's watching this right now and saying, "Wow, you know what? I want my life to have a shift, a transformational shift. I'm looking for 2026 to be a breakout year." Somebody with all the things that you've done. What's your feedback to them?
So, my nieces and nephews would laugh if they see this. My kids all have heard me say this a million times, but I often like say I'm running a marathon. I'll come back into the house halfway through, and I'll drag the kids along and say, "Who wants to come out?" And pretty much all of my kids, with the exception of little Wells, have run multiple half marathons,
Wow.
and I think 3 of them have run full marathons. And one of them was the most remarkable. Is the same boy I was talking about earlier, Noah. When he was 12, he's 13 now. So last year I was training for I was a 100 miler. And so I was going to do, I was doing sort of like a walk run strategy where it was a little bit slower. And I said, "Listen, buddy, you've been running, half before, zero training. Tomorrow I'm going to do it a little different. I'm going to incorporate some walking into it." And this kid, I call him indefatigable. I mean, he is high energy. And I said, "Why don't you come out with me? We're going to walk, run. Maybe you do 15. Maybe see how it goes." He goes, "Okay, what time are you going to start?" I go, "All right, I'll get up at 6. I'll wake you up." He said, "Okay." So he comes out, and we're at mile 14, climbing the biggest hill in town. I call it Everest. And he starts dragging a little bit, and I'm like, "Hey, buddy, you look a little tired." It's like, "You did great. Head home. Our house is right over there. No big deal." He's like, "I'm not stopping, Dad." And he pushed through, and he did 26.2 miles, zero training, 12 years old. And at the end, he goes, "Hey, Dad, I think I'm going to lose a toenail." And I go, "Oh, that's okay, buddy." He's like, "It's not okay." I go, "I lose one every year, pal. Don't worry about it." And he goes, "I'm never doing this again." And I said, yeah, pal, that's what we all said. But the long story short is, whenever I'm on those half marathons or whatever with the kids, I'll say it's hard, but it's not that hard. And
Ooh,
sort of incorporate that into their life, like, because it's really good to do hard things, because it trains you mentally, it trains you physically, it trains you. And I think it's important to do hard things, and that is one example of many. And so when I have a challenge at work, or I have a challenge in a relationship, or a challenge with my kids, or whatever, it's all, I feel like I can handle it because I've done very difficult things and somehow got through it, somehow survived. And so that's my advice to people would be, to do hard things. And it's hard, but it's not that hard.
but it's not that hard. Wow. Dr. Brent, I'm telling you that. I mean, I feel like we could create a t-shirt. You should create a t-shirt and trademark that, because there's a real power in that statement. I've never heard anybody say that before. So I hope
So
you folks watching this podcast got as much out of I got out of this. Dr. Brent, this was such a pleasure hanging out with you today.
same here, man.
And I can't wait. I think we have to do a follow-up. Once you do one of your next marathons, we have to do a follow-up to this. We are actually launching a new Alovéa product. Can't even say the name of it yet, but electrolyte product with
Cool.
Ace Man. It's going to be a breakthrough product in the sports industry. So we can't wait. Once we get that out, we'll let you do a race and we'll do a follow up podcast. But boy,
Awesome.
this was such a pleasure hanging out with you today.
You too, Craig. Thanks so much.
All right, and everybody else, stay tuned for some of our next Alovéa Pros podcasts, and look forward to seeing everyone soon.